My name is Jasmine Goodtrial Moore, and I am the Executive Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Guilford County Schools. And I'm a relatively new Executive Director and new to K-12 education. My background is actually in public health with a specific connection and emphasis in maternal and child health. And within that body of work, which I had been doing for the last 12 years, I have also been specifically focused on issues with respect to racial health equity.
Hi, I'm Cherry, and I've recorded an interview with a Dr. Allison Matthews with our DEI director of the Guilford County Schools, K through 12. Her name is Jasmine Goodtrial Moore. Listen to what she's saying. Her experience and knowledge is in maternal child health. So I want you to pay attention to the words she's using. Now, much of the language that she is speaking is Marxist language. The definitions of these words have been changed, and they may mean differently than what we have always known them to mean.
And in societies like ours, because this is not unique here, is that our social status, our standing, results in inequities across systems, and that includes health and healthcare as a social determinant of health. And the other systems I will name are also named and identified as social determinants of health that determine the health outcomes for communities. So health and health care, neighborhood and built environment, social and community context, also education and or economic placement, economic access and such. So understanding that those social determinants of which some of the early foundational contributors to what sociology uses, i.e. our critical theorists such as Antonio Gramsci and others.
If you do not know who Antonio Gramsci is, he is an Italian Marxist. In the 1920s and 30s, he was imprisoned in an Italian fascist prison, and he wrote the essays for what is going on in America today in the universities and in our schools and in corporations and in government. It sounds like that even though she's Black, she's saying that there's no way these Black women can make any decisions on their own. They have to have somebody to do this for them. She's victimizing them and telling them that she has to help them get out of this, that they can't do it on their own. But that is just not true.
As a social determinant of health. And the other systems I will name are also named and identified as social determinants of health that determine the health outcomes for communities. So health and health care, neighborhood and built environment, social and community context, also education and or economic placement, economic access and such. So understanding that those social determinants of which some of the early foundational contributors to what sociology uses, i.e. our critical theorists such as Antonio Gramsci and others call those social determinants or systems superstructures.
Yes.
And so
what she means by superstructures is something that Antonio Gramsci came up with.
Kind of core superstructures are definitely health, like policy and who governs law, right? And then also the economy, of which those superstructures, I think there may be some others that I may have missed. Nonetheless, those are the three core, with the understanding that those superstructures essentially are the undergirding factors that uphold the dominant group. That said, and in our society, in societies like ours, that have developed as a result of the need to create hierarchy that is protected, sustained, and upheld by a specific economic structure. The laboring class are minority people in the society, and that has.
Did she just say that the laboring class are all minorities? I don't think so. Look around.
In the case in order to uphold and to continue to create and sustain and develop capital, money. And that said, and looking at some of the programs I was a part of as a coordinator in public health and maternal and child health, seeing that we were really addressing issues and providing awesome work and frameworks, but ultimately noting that regardless of what program I'm looking at in public health, regardless of what system I'm looking at, which brings the social determinants back into play here, that these gaps with respect to succeeding in each of these systems are consistent, regardless of what system we're looking at. And if the gaps are that intense, if the disproportionality, the term used in education, or the disparity rate, the term used in health and healthcare, which all is talking about a huge chasm with respect to who's succeeding and who's not, then while we can always say something's wrong with those people, that's a very easy surface thing to say. And what I love and appreciate about sociology and these kind of deeper avenues for thinking foundation that we are able to participate in choice, because this is not a part of how we are groomed and nurtured in our schooling overall in society. We can say something's wrong with those people, but we need to look at the root causes and note that there is a chain of events and practices and procedures that have taken place and that have transcended a corporate structure with institutions, but have become how we socialize with each other. The practices and procedures become culture with respect to how we think about ourselves and each other. So this is not something that's happened overnight. The gaps are not relegated to poor decision making by people. What's wrong with those people? What's wrong is the system by which those people are being nurtured and being engaged as citizens or residents, because citizens is a sort of privileged space to be in as well. So that has been my work, examining the realities of racial health inequities, and specific as applied to the most sensitive and vulnerable population, which tends to be that space when we're first coming into this world. So in public health and in general with the World Health Organization and in data and research with respect to.
Okay, if there is a gap between a certain population, certain people, then it's not necessarily that no one will care for them. It doesn't matter your color. I am an RN and I worked in postpartum for 14 years when we had Women's Hospital here in Greensboro. I have not seen any doctor, nurse, or staff not pay attention and not attend to any patient, no matter what color. And we had lots of colors, not lots of nationalities. We even had someone who came to visit from Israel and went into labor and came to our hospital. So, I mean, we had people from all over. The doctors treated everyone with care and consideration. Now, if there was a gap, If there was an issue or a problem anywhere, the patient was refusing care or mentally ill, because some moms, if they had bipolar, they couldn't usually take their medications during pregnancy. And it might be different now. There might be different medications, but when I was there, they couldn't take their medications. So having a baby releases a lot of hormones, and there's a lot of emotions flying all around in maternity, in the hospitals, family, whatever. It's just emotionally. So if there's an issue, it may be just coming from the patient. And I was a nurse for 16 years, and I worked somewhere else for a while, and I still didn't see that.
Condition, the question or discussion starts to take shape at the location of maternal and child health, understanding that the state of health of our infants, of our children, is a huge determining factor for what's happening in society. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, Black infants are dying before the age of 1 at astronomical rates compared to their white counterparts.
Mrs. Goodtrow is talking about the infant mortality before 1 year old. In an article in the New York Times, it says that the death rate of infants before 1 year has gone up for all babies, for white, Black, Hispanic, all of them. In 2022, the rise, what does that correlate with, is COVID, but it's not necessarily the infections. But let me go back. The article is not saying that why. The article in the New York Times doesn't say why the infant deaths have risen, but it was correlated with the decline of the COVID virus. But also what was going on then is the COVID shots. And there have been studies to show that the COVID shots have been harmful. Many people have died. Many people have become ill, blood clots, especially for the young people. So we don't know, but that could be a major cause.
Native American infants are dying before the age of 1. We know that's called infant mortality. We know that when there is an mortality, that in that space of that first year of life, it's not just that a child is dying by the age of 1. The reality is that is clearly the final thing that might happen in that child's life, but there are other predetermining factors that might result in the potential infant mortality or infant morbidity, which also determines the health of mom, health of baby, what that pregnancy was like. And those things we've noted in multidisciplinary research around maternal and child health, that there are moms which is actually most interesting, that are socioeconomically very, very well-to-do, right? Highly educated, making awesome income, all the right decisions, going to the doctor, doing all the things they're supposed to do. But they're the ones that are dying. And so what we're seeing is that it is the allostatic load, the levels of stress that person, those persons are experiencing over their lifetime that puts wear on their bodies. That's called weathering effects. The allostatic load.
Okay, something else Ms. Goodtrow talks about is that you can be Black and be successful, making a good income, very knowledgeable, still at risk of dying during or after pregnancy, and your infant is still at a high risk of dying. She means that it's not just those Black women in poverty, it's all Black women. And the reason she is saying this, she says, is because of stress. the stress of just being dark skinned. She says that it's more stressful for a Black woman to live. And she mentions during COVID, they were extra stressed. Everybody was 1,000 times more stressed during COVID. It didn't miss anyone.
Others are dying perinatal stage, meaning in their last trimester of pregnancy or within that first 4 months postpartum. That's that perinatal stage, very critical time. Thinking about what that does when you're seeing people who could be your cousin, neighbors, whomever, even if you aren't a person, a Black, Indigenous person of color, and you're seeing these traumas that we're receiving, the fear of maybe, if I'm partnered, my partner, whether that be man or woman, we're talking about these men dying by the hands of vigilantes and police and otherwise.
So why is she talking about Black men who have died at the hands of vigilantes or died at the hands of the police? It has been proven that more Blacks die from being murdered by other Blacks. It's not white on Black, it's Black on Black.
But there are Black women who are dying in their bed, sleeping at night.
Lots of people die in their sleep at night in the bed. It's not just Black, it's white, brown, yellow, purple, any color of people die in their sleep at night.
We still have. So that said, the fact that just being and existing is a significant stressor. And while we may be able to move through it, knowing this is our reality, it doesn't dismiss the reality of what it does to our bodies, is the bottom line. So having that work and also connecting into deeper levels of understanding race as a pervasive undergirding thread, or actually the quilt that wraps our society in a blanket that might be called an American to others, is not a realized not a realized opportunity for many folks. Also, I appreciate you talking about Pierre Bourdieu. He's definitely a sociologist that I tend to lean on heavily.
The sociologist, a French sociologist that she's saying she has depended heavily on, his name is Pierre Bourdieu. And then in information about this sociologist says that he's learned from Karl Marx and W.E. Du Bois, and they are both communist, maybe / Marxists.